The time is just gone 8:26 a.m. We continue with the broadcast this morning, and last night we had quite an extensive discussion looking at the Department of Basic Education and their proposals with regard to unisex bathrooms. And there has been outrage, there has been an outcry from right across the board, as we had seen last night on the show, and from a whole host of people, political parties. We've seen activists, we've seen ulama. We've seen ulama bodies issue statements, and this morning we continue with this discussion. And Islamic Lifestyle Solutions are saying no to these unisex bathrooms. We're joined by the co-founder and head of Dawah Education and Publication at Islamic Lifestyle Solution, Sheikh Fahim Mohammed. Sheikh Fahim, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for having me.
Yes, Jazakallah to you. And obviously, as I mentioned, there's been this huge outcry. There has been outrage coming through, and we've seen even the likes of the MJC issuing press release. We've seen the Al Jamaa Party issuing press release. And at the end of the day, this clearly is not. This is not a good suggestion. This is not a good move on the part of the Department of Basic Education throwing this out. And although they say it's still a proposal, there are causes for concern.
100%. I mean, from the perspective of Muslims, 1400 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned us of such a time. But irrespective of that, as Muslim minorities, um, it is a cause of concern. Our children do go to schools. But aside from that, these are just, in my opinion, red herrings to the bigger problems, whereby if it's about constitutional right, why is it that minorities are taken into consideration at the expense of majorities? I mean, for instance, if we look just at stats, the South African Society of Psychiatrists in a paper explained that the percentage of youth who identify as transgender, and the numbers were so small that they had to provide stats from USA, saying that a study showed that just 0.7% of youth in the US between ages of 13 to 17 identified as transgender. So this is in a country like South Africa with about 60.4 million population. And when you're looking at youth between 13 to 17 at 0.7%, and we're making this big story whereby the majority has to take the hit at the expense of a minority, when the larger problems in relation to education, living conditions, the psyche of children in general, we're not taking all of those things into consideration just because there's some small lobbies that are making a lot of noise, and we're succumbing to the global secular ideals from these lobbyists, and we're trying to make amendments that will, in effect, have a greater uh, negative problem on the psyche of the general populace. So it's not telling.
Well, certainly, and also I think you make some very, very good points in terms of where this pressure has actually come from, and clearly this is imported pressure into the country. When one looks at the maths, when one does the maths, the numbers just don't make sense, because at the end of the day, we are talking about a majority view, and how powerful this lobby is. Now, Sheikh, just I've had a request from my engineer to obviously bring the mic a bit closer to you so that we can hear you a bit more clearly as well. But also at the same time, we're looking at it from an Islamic perspective. Now, last night when I had this discussion, we had a cross section of society, and this is not only a Muslim community that is outraged by this announcement by the Department of Basic Education. This is right across the board in this country, Sheikh Fahim.
No, 100%. I mean, look, there's a few things. I mean, if we speak about stats, right? In 2019, a paper written called The Economic Costs of LGBT and Discrimination of South Africa, it was mentioned that an estimated 634,000 of SA adults were willing to self-identify. That's just 634,000 out of a population that's now 60.4 million. So we're looking at absolute minimal numbers. Now, here's the problem, right? Of course, this is just one of many bills that want to be introduced. The next is going to be unisex uniforms, right? That's another thing that's also, in the bill itself. But here's the thing. Are they saying unisex bathrooms, meaning male and female merged into one? Or are they talking about a third bathroom, right? And then we have problems with each one. If we're saying that we're merging the both bathrooms into one, then it's at the expense of the majority to appease the minority. Because then we're saying, because of these one or two, or maybe not even one in an entire classroom, we want to make this big change, then it doesn't make sense from a logical perspective, from a constitutional perspective, from a human rights perspective. Then if we're saying, okay, we want to add a third one, but then how suddenly the government has the funds to now create a third bathroom where we don't have funds for basic education, for basic sanitization? Is it now, and then we can bring a third question here, maybe there's a tender company that's also pushing because they want government funding. That's something we're not thinking about, right? So there's a lot of things to consider here, and each point it's not making sense. What about religious freedom? Is religious freedom suddenly something that goes out of the window to appease the views of a minority when the majority of this country assigns and aligns to a religion? It's not making sense. There's something that's definitely not telling here.
Well, certainly is, Sheikh Fahim. We're going to go for a quick break. We'll be back with you. It's
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
For every child who lost a parent,
for every refugee who lost their home,
for every community without water,
for every person searching for a
I
way
know,
to
but the
give,
thing is, I can't in
Africa
the middle of
Muslims
a
Agency
serious.
has been at your service for 35 years, connecting hearts and changing lives. Thank you for helping us to serve the needy
On the
since
telephone.
1987.
Yeah,
Support
let's do
our
it on the
journey
telephone.
by donating to Africa Muslims Agency as we commemorate 35 years of empowering, educating, and inspiring.
With so many investment options today, it's only natural that you might feel a little confused which route to take. Should I buy shares or should I invest in gold bullion? Randery Jewelers now brings you the Zahab coin, an alternative to the Kruger Rand. The Zahab coin, a solid wealth protector in its purest form of 24-karat gold, is the safest way to protect your wealth. So don't just sit there and watch your paper money depreciate. Change to gold. Call Randery Jewelers now at 031-202-4701 or visit www.rjcoin.co.za, situated at 151 Essenwood Road, Musgrave, Durban. Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Did you know that through SANZAF, you can provide a meal to an individual for only 12 Rand? By committing to a monthly contribution, you can assist us in reaching out to more communities and deserving individuals. A once-off donation will also be highly appreciated in helping us achieve our monthly target. For more information, call us on 011-834-6046. SANZAF, changing lives through development and relief.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
We continue with our discussion this morning with Sheikh Fahim Mohammed, co-founder and head of Dawah Education and Publication at Islamic Lifestyle Solutions, saying no to the unisex bathrooms. Sheikh Fahim, assalamu alaikum once again and welcome.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته جزاك الله خير.
Yes, Sheikh Fahim, there were a number of issues that we were already unpacking, and as you mentioned, that there are more critical issues that the Department of Education and the government need to focus on, rather than come up with this idea of unisex bathrooms to appease a minute, in fact, a very, very small section of South Africa. We can't even call them a minority, and I would call them a minority amongst minorities. And at the end of the day, this is not about discrimination, because this is what the lobby group has actually been pushing, this whole agenda of being discriminated against. And this is not a case of discrimination, and I'm sure you will concur with it, Sheikh Fahim.
100%. I mean, if it's about discrimination, then show us the stats. Let us see the statistics. Let us see the schools where we've seen this rise in the rhetoric of discrimination against transgender. It doesn't exist. It's not there. Being an educator myself, we've liaised with various schools in the years. We've not seen it. We've not heard of it. It's non-existent. It's a myth in order to create this rhetoric that is needed for this particular birth. Yes, there may be some isolated incidents, and we know very well that in this day and age of social media, things can go viral, and you can see what it is in fact not in reality. It's a deception. So if such a thing exists, I mean, how is it going to exist as a stat when the numbers itself for the actual people who align to that, self-identify, don't even meet the criterion? So it's definitely something that befogs the mind, befogs the senses. And this is why as Muslims, we are taught in the Quran, أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, do you not exercise the rational faculty? So it's definitely not telling. And like we said, religion is made to seem as the evil party because that's the easiest way. But why should we punish the majority in order to appease, as you said, the minority of the minority here? So as Muslims, we, the Islamic Lifestyle Solutions, we are advising, because apparently people will be given, the community will be given the opportunity to discuss this matter in the coming year, that we should not wait till then. We should go and visit our local political councils. We should make our voices heard now, and this should be taken to Congress, taken to the party leaders, and our voices should be heard now as opposed to later, because it is vital. We don't want it to come to the point where our children are put in a position, for a non-existent reality, even though that may seem oxymoronical, but that's what it is in reality.
Yes, and just finally, Sheikh Fahim, in fact, when one looks at the maths and look at the statistics, what the department should actually be focusing on. Yesterday, we heard about 91,000 school pregnancies. We know that many children are coming to school hungry. They are starving. We know what has happened, the deaths as a result of pit toilets. Now, all of this put together tells us that the focus is on unisex bathrooms, yet all these other issues, and these are critical, absolutely critical issues that need to be addressed, because children coming hungry to school, we know the issues surrounding discipline, drugs, all of these type of things are major, major problems. And again, you mentioned you being an educator, how much pressure will this now add to what educators are already pressurized with?
100%. Like I said, it's a red herring. It's to steer away from the actual problem. I mean, if we've read many of the statements from the department, it's always been about lack of funding, right? When you want absolutely necessary, conformity in terms of education that meets the demands of the Western world, there's an issue of funding. When you want sanitization that meets the demands of the Western world, then it's funding. But when you want a rhetoric that appeases the rest of the Western world, because you may have signed some agreement that they're going to check on, then suddenly you've got the funding to create unisex bathrooms across to thousands of schools across the country. Why is there funding for this and you don't have funding for the basic needs of children? Like we keep saying, there's something amiss here. It seems as if our priorities are misaligned. And, whether it's coming from the hierarchical approach, misaligned hierarchical approach from the Department of Education or not, but I believe that if our voices are heard in the appropriate way, if we use social media in the appropriate way, we can make a difference. And it doesn't mean, that our social media handles are to be used only for our personal use. Let's get our voices heard. As Muslims, we have that right and we should exercise it.
Well, Sheikh Fahim, Jazakallah for that and for your time with us this morning. We do appreciate you taking time out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're most welcome. Keep up the selling work. Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh Fahim Mohammed, and just a quick message, it has come through on the screen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear elders, indeed, these are times of furur and fasad. These are real times of fitna. The problem started when the action of the people of Lut was approved during the Thabo Mbeki era. So the whole can of worms were open, and that comes from a Sakumzi Mtumbeni. Well, with that, we're going to go for a break. We've got Aisha Keji standing by. We are focusing on the ongoing protests and the current situation in Tehran. Aisha Keji recently returned from Tehran, where she was leading a group tour.